All right, today we're going to talk about one of the most ambitious, maybe even craziest environmental projects happening on the planet. And it all kicks off with this one absolutely mind-boggling number.
Yep, 1 billion tons. Just try to wrap your head around that for a second. That's like the weight of 10,000 aircraft carriers. It's a truly massive number. But what on earth is it?
And that brings us to the big question of the day. Why did China physically go out and move 1 billion tons of desert sand in just 1 year? Well, to get to the answer, you've got to understand the absolutely massive crisis they were up against. A crisis that was, and I mean this literally, swallowing the country.
Okay, so let's set the scene. This wasn't something that happened overnight. We're talking about a slow motion disaster. For decades, northern China just had to watch as its good, fertile farmland literally turned to dust. The whole nation was teetering on the edge. And just look at this chart to get a sense of the scale we're dealing with. This isn't just some small patch of dry land we're talking about. Over a quarter of China's entire landmass had turned into desert. To put that in perspective, that's an area bigger than all of Western Europe. Just gone.
So you're probably asking, how did it get this bad? Well, it was kind of a perfect storm. You had widespread deforestation that went on for years, plus way too much livestock grazing, which just stripped the soil bare. With no tree roots to hold everything in place, the massive Gobi Desert just started creeping south. It literally swallowed up entire villages and farms. And then came the dust storms. We're talking huge, massive storms that would just choke big cities like Beijing, turning the sky orange. The social and economic stability of millions, yeah, that was seriously at risk.
Okay, so when you're facing a threat that could literally wipe you out, you go big, right? China launched one of the most ambitious projects you can imagine. And before they ever thought about moving sand, their first idea was to build a wall. But not a normal wall, a living wall made of trees.
But as you can imagine, this was easier said than done. I mean, the conditions were just brutal. We're talking extreme heat, insane winds, and practically zero rain. People thought they were crazy. This quote really says it all. Trying to plant a forest there was like trying to grow a garden on the surface of the moon. A lot of people thought it was completely impossible.
So what do? Well, the solution they came up with was honestly brilliant and surprisingly low-tech. It's called the straw checkerboard grid. They basically dig these little trenches, stick straw in them vertically to make a grid, and that's it. The grid traps the sand blowing in the wind, it slows the dunes down, and it creates these little protected squares where they could finally plant seedlings that actually had a chance to grow. And this checkerboard idea worked so well, they took it to the next level. They opened up a second front in this war against the sand, this time in the Taklamakan Desert, which, by the way, is nicknamed the Sea of Death, so you know it's a rough place. There, they built a massive 1,700-mile green belt to protect towns and crucial roads from those unstoppable dunes. Okay, but just when you think you've got the story figured out, it takes a really weird turn. Because while China is desperately trying to fight off all this sand in the West, a totally different kind of sand crisis pops up in the East, in all its new booming cities. A problem of sand hunger.
And this is the paradox at the heart of the story. To build all its modern cities and skyscrapers, China needed a colossal amount of sand. So why not just use the endless supply they're fighting out in the deserts? It seems like a no-brainer, right?
Well, here's the thing, and this is super important. Not all sand is the same. It turns out desert sand is, well, kind of useless for construction. See, over thousands of years, the wind tumbles it around and makes each grain smooth and round. When you try to make concrete with it, the grains just don't lock together. You get weak, crumbly stuff. What you really need for strong concrete is the sand you find in rivers and lakes. It's been eroded by water, so it's all jagged and angular. It locks together perfectly.
So this desperate need for the right kind of sand led to this massive industrial boom in something called sand dredging. And it's pretty much what it sounds like. They put these giant, powerful vacuum pumps on ships and just suck up all that good, valuable sand from the bottom of rivers and lakes.
And the consequences? Oh, they were an absolute catastrophe. Take a look at what happened at Lake Poyang, which is China's biggest freshwater lake. All of that dredging caused a full-on ecological collapse. Water levels dropped by a quarter, fish populations crashed.
And, I mean, this is just shocking. The number of migratory birds visiting the lake dropped by 90%. They were basically solving one problem by creating an even bigger one somewhere else.
And that brings us right back to where we started, back to that 1 billion tons. So you've got the Great Green Wall, which is working, but it's slow. And you've got the sand hunger crisis getting worse. So China decided to try something completely radical in the desert. They decided to physically dig it up and move it.
So what happened? What did moving 1 billion tons of sand actually do? Well, the results after just 1 year were nothing short of incredible. The shifting dunes, their advance slowed way down. Air quality actually got better because there was less dust in the air. The soil they uncovered underneath held way more moisture. And get this, over 1,500 miles of rural roads that had been buried under sand for years were suddenly usable again.
But here is the single most mind-blowing result: 300 feet. In some of the worst areas, the desert dunes didn't just stop moving forward, they actually retreated. They moved backward by as much as 300 feet. In 1 year. For the first time, the desert was actually shrinking.
But here's the kicker. Pushing back the desert, that wasn't even the final goal. It was just the beginning. See, by clearing and stabilizing all this land, this massive project opened up a whole new frontier for another one of China's huge ambitions, becoming a green energy superpower.
And the vision for the future here it's just astounding. Right now, they're building some of the biggest solar farms on the planet on this newly reclaimed desert land. And here's a cool side effect. The solar panels create shade, which actually helps more plants and grass grow underneath them. The goal by 2050 is to have created this massive green ring of new forest. We're talking 137,000 square miles, making it the single largest human-made ecological shield on Earth.
So when you take a step back, it leaves you with this really big, provocative question. What started as a desperate fight for survival, literally moving a desert to stop it from swallowing your country, could this incredibly radical idea actually become a model, a blueprint for how we fight climate change on a planetary scale? It's a huge question, and it feels like this war on sand might just be getting started.